Hello and welcome once again to the Story Behind the Stories, your weekly look at the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press. I'm Eoin Devereux, news and sports reporter with the Banner Press, welcoming you once again to our show right here on NAC TV. Always appreciate you taking a little bit of your time and spending it with us. I'm joined this week by Kyra Patterson. Kyra, good to have you here this week.
Sure, yep.
Well, the last times, I don't know if we can let the cat out of the bag or you've just told everybody, but
It's a secret, don't say. No.
I ruined it. Spoilers.
Wow.
But Kyra will be moving on to some new adventures within the next couple weeks. So this might be the last episode that you're on.
Unless you force me on next week.
It's the second last episode that Kyra is going to be on.
Dang, I had to open my mouth.
But fortunately for you, Kyra, we're going to make sure this last couple weeks is going to be eventful. And we're going to start off with a piece of work that you put together with one of our new members of the staff as well. Talk to me a little bit about Meet the Teachers.
Yeah, there's not a lot to say.
All right, great.
You're
All
welcome
right,
at the end. It's pretty self-explanatory. Meet the Teachers. We have a list of all of the teachers. Some schools give us a list of all their staff. Of all the schools in our area, so that's Rolling River School Division schools, Beautiful Plains, Turtle River, and Pine Creek. They all send us lists of their staff, teachers, and then traditionally we used to have pictures of the teachers, but now we have pictures of each school so that you can kind of see, oh, that's where these people are working, right? This year, this is the first time we did a separate section for it. So it is our B section this year. And 8 full pages of lots of schools, lots of staff. You can read through and say, oh, I didn't know that person was a teacher there, because that's what I did. Some people that I knew that I didn't know where they had gone, and that was kind of interesting. But one of the things I'm most proud of is our front page, which is, I just think it's really cute. We found some stock photos of classrooms and teachers and stuff like that, and we kind of made a little chalkboard with them magneted on there, and had a little bit of fun with that. So I was pretty excited. I like to get creative once in a while. Sometimes I have good ideas. But
what was really the best part that everyone in the back room really appreciated was we went and got some stock photos, and we were able to get these couple of frustrated youngsters, and we just loved it. Right on the front page, you're going to have to pick up a physical copy of the Banner Press to see a real up-close and personal version, or you can find it on mywestman.ca. And it was just, everybody just went off about this one kid who's showing off the frustration of the arithmetic.
It just speaks to the soul of the children that go to school. Like, math class,
Yeah, let's be honest, we've all been there.
Yeah.
Math class.
Exactly.
Oh God, we gotta do the show again.
Exactly.
Just kidding.
Yeah, we definitely had some fun. Another thing to note in this year's that is new, you might notice a new name in there. We have a new staff member. Her name is Destiny, and she just started last week, and that was when we were starting to put the Meet the Teachers together, and she was able to write a couple of the stories in there from some of the informational summaries that the school divisions gave us. So she did a really good job. We were able to put some of her stories in the Meet the Teachers, so you can kind of see what's going on in the different divisions, some of the projects that they're working on, some of the new construction, some of the new programs that they're putting in, all that kind of thing. There's good information in there. Definitely don't toss it out with the flyers, because nobody wants the flyers.
It's a whole heck of a lot better than what we've had in previous years in terms of some of the information. We went to Metro Creative, a resource we use for interesting takes, editorials, creative ideas. They talk about how kids can sort of minimize the effects of a heavy backpack on them, because apparently that's a thing nowadays. Or reading comprehension, how to improve that, how to have certain strategies to improve a youngster's reading comprehension. These types of little valuable things. Always appreciate being able to track down from Metro. But as you said as well, there was a lot of in-house stuff that we did as well that make it a full and complete B section that hopefully you will take a few minutes and check out. All right, let's go over to the A section, the big money maker, as it were, and talk about our front page, which is always the best place to start. And I'm very glad to be able to spend a few minutes of my time over at the Legion and learn a little bit more about the Neepawa Ladies Auxiliary, and especially them celebrating very special milestone. They hit their 90th recently as an organization, as a component and a compatriot with the Legion here in Neepawa. 90 years, 90th anniversary, I should say. They had a special gathering on September 13th. It was a good number of current and former representatives with the auxiliary, as well as well-wishers and dignitaries. It really came across nicely. I didn't know much. I only knew the bare basics of the auxiliary, hearing it from Ken about what they do and what they've done through the years. So to be able to learn those types of stories and that type of background and see the energy of these people. I had a chance to speak with a person who no longer lives in Neepawa, but she and her sisters and her mother, grandmother, and her children, they have a legacy with the auxiliary that means a lot to them. And we also had an opportunity to share one of the members celebrating 50 years of service. You can find those details in the story as well. I don't want to give too much away to you right now. This is just a little bit, just a little taste, just to get you hooked, just to get you addicted to the news there. But if you want to find out a little bit more about how important an organization like this is to a community the size of Neepawa, you can check that out. It's right on the front page. I am very pleased to have been able to have shared this with you in this week's edition. So.
No, we did have a little bit of a preview of it in last week, just a picture and a cut line saying, definitely look at this week's paper because that's where all the details are going to be, because it did happen kind of last minute just before we went to print, so we didn't have a lot of time to actually have a full story in last week, but it's awesome that we were able to kind of highlight it on the front page this week, because 90 years, that's a big, 90th anniversary is a big milestone.
Because that's one of the things. Again, behind the scenes, every Wednesday, you know that we are putting together the pages, assembling them, putting them together. It's a lot of work. Sometimes it's tight to the deadlines. So a story like this, we didn't want to skimp on. So we gave a little taste, just a picture and a cut line last week, because if I tried to write this sort of under the gun, it wouldn't have given it the due diligence and the time and effort that it rightfully deserved. So very glad to be able to sort of do that. You can actually, let's skip just quickly here and we'll say the same thing, because if you look on the back page of this week's edition, you're going to see a couple pictures about farming simulation coming to Manitoba. Again, that's a story that's going to be appearing in next week's edition of the Banner Press and the Farmer's Advocate. It's just a little tease, just to get you interested in it. So you're going to have to sort of check that out, and we're going to have the full story next week. Going to be very interesting. But back to the Ladies Auxiliary, I commend them on 90 years of service. Congratulations.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. This is another one that came in just a little under the gun, and we had to get this story in because, let's be honest, certain stories, significant, very important. You got to get to them ASAP. And other stories, you can take your time. You can sort of, I wouldn't say you lay back and you take it easy, but just you can take a little time and effort towards it. This news we wanted to get out as quickly as we could, and that is that Neepawa has a new mayor. Well, okay, not yet. Not quite yet. But we know who that individual is going to be. If you go on to page A2 of the Banner Press this week, you're going to see that Brian Headley will be acclaimed as mayor of Neepawa. The deadline for council individuals to run to council and to run for mayor has passed, and there are 9 individuals who are going to be running for council. We don't have those names in this week's paper because there was a cutoff. We went to print at 2. The cutoff for people to sort of exit the election if they wanted to was 4. Just, that's how time moves. So unfortunately, we couldn't get it in this week's, but we could get Brian's information in there. He is the only individual who is running to be the mayor for Neepawa, and when that does happen, the individual is acclaimed. So essentially, he does not have to go through the rigmarole of an election here. It's just like, as soon as it's all said and done, welcome to the big chair, Brian. So we got a little bit of information on that. I've set up an interview in the very near future to sit down with Brian, talk about his reasoning for running for the position, his mindset, his views for what the town can be in the future. I think it's going to be very interesting. And that's going to appear in next week's edition of the Banner as well. Really, so far, this is just all about next week's edition.
We're all on that preview thing, at like the end of a TV show, and it's like next week on. That's what our whole show is going to be, apparently.
But there is still some very valuable information in this week's on that. You can find that on page A2, and expanded details on it will be appearing in the next paper. Now, coming up towards the end of September, and for many of us now, this is going to become something traditionally that we sort of, I won't say celebrate, but remember the day of truth and reconciliation. There's been a lot of hubbub, a lot of discussion about that, about what Manitoba is or is not doing to celebrate and to spotlight that. Well, fortunately, there's communities and community groups that are taking the initiative to spotlight it. And that is, in this case, Arts Forward.
Yep.
Kyra, give us the perspective on this one.
So this will be the second year that Arts Forward has kind of organized something. Last year they were able to get a powwow presentation at the NACI track, the high school in Neepawa, and students from NACI, from the middle school, I believe from HMK as well, and community members were all welcome to come and watch these presentations and learn a little bit about Indigenous culture in Canada. And it was very interesting, very cool to see their dances and their regalia and the drum circle and all of that. It was very interesting. I was able to go to it last year, and Yvonne Sisley, she was the one who kind of organized it. She is the administrator at Arts Forward. She reached out to me this year again and said we're doing something this year as well, and they're expanding on it this year as well. So that's actually really cool. They are having powwow presentations, I believe similar to what was last year, but they are also doing some different stations for the students at the school. It's all going to be on September 29th, which is the day before National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, because that day is off school. So they wanted to be able to have the kids there with their classes and stuff. So they're doing it on the 29th. It's at the Flats. It's open for anybody who, if they're interested in going and seeing the powwow. There's stations like bannock baking, beadwork. I believe there's a teepee that's going to be set up. All sorts of different things, different aspects of Indigenous culture. And Yvonne has quite the passion for trying to get across the Indigenous culture and spotlight it, because there isn't always a lot of recognition for that culture in our area. And so she was very adamant that as the cultural center that Arts Forward is, they wanted to bring in these cultures and highlight these cultures that are part of our community. So there have been things like the Filipino month, I believe, in June, I think it was. I think Arts Forward maybe was involved in that. Don't quote me on that, but there have been different cultural events in the community before, and this is one thing that Yvonne definitely wanted to make sure happened, and I believe it's probably going to be something that they kind of want to highlight every year around this time of year. So it's definitely great. It looks like it's going to be a really interesting day. I'm hoping to be able to get down there and get some pictures, so that'll be in a future edition as well. And yeah, she wanted to as well stress the fact that it's very important for the younger generation to learn these things, because that's where the change is going to start. Once they're exposed to this at a younger age and start learning about these cultures and accepting these cultures, that's where change is going to happen. It's a lot harder to teach old dogs new tricks, right? It's a lot harder to inspire change in the older generations when you can just instill it in the children as they're growing up. And that's a really important thing as well, why she wanted to get the schools involved. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be a really interesting day, and it is open to the public. It's going to be at the Flats. There will be 2 powwow presentations. I believe they're going to be about an hour each, one at 9:45, and I think the other one will be at 1:30. So anybody who's interested can go down and watch those. I believe they're going to be kind of the same, the same kind of presentation both times, so you can go to one or the other. But yeah, definitely a really important thing to highlight, especially these days.
Most definitely. And again, even though Neepawa, even the name Neepawa comes from Indigenous roots, honestly, there is not a large proportionally large Aboriginal Indigenous population in Neepawa anymore. It is a very small. So we are a little isolated from that culture, and I think that's something that does need to change. And hopefully events like this will be able to spur that change on. All right, now an event that is an annual tradition here in Neepawa in another way has made a return. And I'm referring to the Terry Fox Run, which occurred recently. It's an event that has always been well represented in terms of people participating in and around Neepawa. So the last couple years, though, weren't really able to because of restrictions with COVID-19. That's made 2020's event pretty much a no-go in terms of face-to-face. And last year's was more of a scattered, scheduled sort of start time. Try saying that multiple times for those that were involved. But this year was really the first time they were able to do it en masse together like they used to back in the old days. And it was great to see so many people. There had to be about 80, 90 people there. Families, well-wishers, supporters, cancer survivors. For those of you that may not know, Terry Fox Run is a huge national and international fundraiser as well. There are some other countries around the world that do take part in this. Canada obviously is the major nation in the world that is involved. Terry Fox, a well-regarded and well-respected individual. His Marathon of Hope is legendary in terms of what he tried to accomplish and the inspiration that it created for generations after the fact. I had an opportunity to sort of take some of the pictures from the event here in Neepawa. The official numbers, Kyra, weren't available yet. I'm sure we're going to have them in a future edition of the Banner Press. Everything's in the future.
We're a futuristic paper.
And I'm very much looking forward to that because Neepawa, per capita, compared to some other towns and some cities in Manitoba, always steps up huge. So I'm looking forward to seeing if we're going to do it again this time out.
Yeah. And I'm very glad that you were on the ball because I knew that the Terry Fox Run was coming up. And then I drove through town on Sunday and saw all these signs and thought, wait, is that today? I sure hope somebody knows about this because I was not prepared for that.
Well, again, it's one of those things of you do get sort of bogged down with all these other things. Getting the paper ready, sometimes you have multiple sections, the A and the B section like we have and will be having for the next few weeks. Oh my Lord. And of course, Kyra has been doing a lot of the training for our new person because, you know, they won't let me near people. They just, it's like, no, just
sit in your corner and do your thing.
Yeah. And I appreciate it just as much as the people who have to deal with me. I really do. But, and it did catch us off guard, I got to admit. But I was thinking about that Friday evening. It was like, we never assigned somebody to it, but I'll go down there. It's one of those ones. Sometimes you go to events and it's just like, oh God, I do not want to be here. Terry Fox Run is not one of those. Very happy to be able to share the information every year with that. And you can find the information in the paper. You can find that on page A9, one of the color pages.
Wow.
All right, yeah. And just very quickly on page A11, just flip one page over. Kyra, you got an interesting story that you were able to track down.
Yeah, this was cool. It's actually a story some people might be familiar with because it originally came from Dave Bennett, who is a volunteer here in NACTV, and he got the video for NACTV and he passed it along to me and thought some of your readers might be interested in this if they don't see the program on TV. And local Reverend Chad McCharles, he has a bit of a connection to the late Queen Elizabeth II, and he shared that on, it might have already been on TV and you maybe have seen it, but he shared a little bit about this connection. He has a chair which was passed down to him from his mother, I believe, who had gotten it from his great grandfather or came from his grandmother, something. It originally was his great-grandfather's, but before that, it belonged in the government house in Winnipeg at the legislature. And the Queen actually visited in 1970 and stayed in the room where this chair was and sat in this chair. And Reverend McCharles's great-grandfather, if I have the generations correct, was actually working at the legislative grounds during that time, and he had the opportunity to meet the Queen. He was, I believe, making up a floral bouquet in her room, because he was, I believe, a groundskeeper. He did the gardening and that kind of thing. And she walked in as he was doing that and sat in that chair. And when he retired, they asked, "Oh, what would you like as a retirement gift?" And he said, "I think I want that chair because the Queen sat in it." So that's kind of been a family heirloom now since that time. And now Reverend Chad has it, and he had it up on display at the Anglican Church, the United Anglican Church, excuse me, in Neepawa, because they had a bit of I don't want to say a shrine, but a little bit of a display.
A little memorial type
Yes,
thing?
that's the word. Thank you. A memorial for the Queen because of her passing in recent weeks. And obviously there is quite the connection between Canadians being a Commonwealth country and also the Anglican Church being the Church of England. So she was head of state there, or head of church, or whatever the terminology is. So there was a lot of people have been very disheartened by hearing of the Queen's passing, and he wanted to have something at the church just to kind of focus that grief on, and so people can go up and pay their respects at this display. So it was really cool that he was able to share that story, and the Queen having visited Manitoba several times. There's lots of cool stories here and there. In the past, we have had stories from Mr. Bailey, whose, I believe, father actually hosted the Queen and her family at his farm near Carberry. So there are lots of little local stories that there was the connection with, and I was really excited that there was another one that we didn't know about before.
That is really nice. These sort of unexpected stories that come out of the woodwork. That's the great thing sometimes about a small town community paper, is you get to discover these types of hidden treasures, and hopefully you'll take a moment to sort of discover it for yourself in this week's paper. All right, just one other item of note. We have a picture in Cutline in there from the community of Gladstone, and the Legion had a ceremony of their own in relation to a memorial for the Queen. So we just wanted to share that. It does sort of segue nicely with Kyra's story right there about the remembrance and the solemn remembrance for Her Majesty. So, all right, now we're going to move on. This is a story that Casper was able to put together. There's it's interesting to see some of this. There's a new exhibit at Arts Forward, and Casper was able to go down and get some information on what's known as layers under the surface. Tremendous artwork that was put together. The individual, Melissa Perieski, I think is how it's pronounced. If it's not correct, I apologize. But it was so impressive just to see the pictures of the work that was done. And Casper had an opportunity to talk to that individual, Melissa, about it, about some of the art, some of the reasoning behind the displays. And it's a great sort of, I almost say it doesn't do it justice to the degree of you need to go down there yourself to Arts Forward here in Neepawa and see it for yourself. It is just so thoroughly impressive, I thought, at least.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. And that kind of also ties in a little bit to that Truth and Reconciliation, the display of culture, because this is also an Indigenous artist, if I remember correctly. And that was, I think, probably one of the reasons of the timing for this exhibit was they kind of wanted to coincide that Indigenous art with the Indigenous culture celebrations around this time of year. So that, I think that kind of is a cool little tie-in there, but it also, the art does look amazing. We saw a few other pictures as well, and it's definitely, I would highly recommend popping down there.
That's right. And if you want to see it for yourself with your own eyes, it will be down at the Arts Forward Cultural Center until October 1st. So hopefully you'll be able to take a few minutes and see it for yourself. In fact, speaking about seeing stuff for yourself, hopefully sometime over the course of the fall and into the winter, and hopefully into the spring, Kyra, fingers crossed, you'll be able to head down to the Yellowhead Arena and check out a Neepawa Titans home game. Titans had their recent home opener for the Manitoba Junior Hockey League regular season, and they hosted the defending Turnbull Cup champions, the Dauphin Kings. Now, they played in Dauphin the night before. It was on Friday the 16th, I believe, that they played in Dauphin. And Dauphin had their home opener, big laser show, all the impressive smoke everywhere, packed house, and the unveiling of the official championship banner. They had the championship trophy there. They were just rubbing it in Neepawa's face for the most part, Kyra, I thought.
I believe it. I mean, if you've got the championship banner and the trophy, why not rub it into people's faces?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. What's the use of being the best if you don't hoard it over everyone else?
Exactly.
But Neepawa put up a valiant effort. They lost ultimately 3-2 in overtime in Dauphin, so they had to look for a little measure of revenge the very next night. And they did get it, almost a carbon copy to a degree of the previous night. They had the lead late. Dauphin tied it up late in regulation. It went into overtime, but it was a more positive result this time for the Neepawa Titans as they won their home opener in overtime by the score of 3-2. They ended up the weekend 1-1 and playing relatively impressively, I thought, against the defending league champs. They also played a weekday game. You may have seen it right here on NAC TV. Hopefully you had an opportunity to see their game against the Swan Valley Stampeders, or maybe not, because they ended up losing 6-3.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't the best one for them, no. They could have had a better showing on that one, Kyra.
Well, you win some, you lose some, literally.
That's right, that's right. Hopefully you will go down to the arena and check them out live, but fortunately, if you can't, you can see every Neepawa Titans home game right here on NAC TV. They are broadcast, they are rebroadcast on NAC TV. So check your local listings, check your online and your TV sort of calendars to see, they don't do TV guides anymore.
I was just about to ask.
The old TV guides, you don't get those anymore. Now everything's online and on the phone and whatnot. So
that's not as fun.
Yeah, it is easier though.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. But kudos to them for getting back at it. Hockey's a lot more fun to cover compared to council meetings and whatnot. So, well, if they're winning.
Yeah.
If they're losing, it's not nearly as fun.
No.
So, there's so much more we could talk about. Several stories, a whole bunch of pictures, but there's just not enough time in a half hour, it seems, each and every week. That's why you need to pick up a physical copy of the Banner Press in or around Neepawa. Or if you can't, you can check it out online at mywestman.ca. And again, if you have any story suggestions for us, we always appreciate that, don't we, Kyra?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you will for the next week or two. Then quit calling.
Then it's, not my problem anymore. I don't care. Tell them.
Yeah. But yeah, you can do that by calling us at 476-3401, or you can get in touch with us at news@neepawabanner.com. If you have a sports-specific story, pretty much just swap out news for sports at neepawabanner.com. Either way, they both come to me, so I'll get them one way or another. So we always do appreciate, and we try. We're a small town paper. We try and get every story we can on the page, but sometimes we can, sometimes we can't, but we always try and do the best we can for you and to provide that community's local news, things you need to know in a timely manner. And we do appreciate your support. And Kyra, we appreciate you. Like I said, if this is your last episode,
Do you really appreciate me, though?
You have moments.
I don't know if I believe that. But,
but no, it's great. Thanks for coming in and sort of sitting down and talking with us about what you did this week.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thanks for doing most of the talking.
And once again, thank you. We always appreciate you taking a little bit of your time, tuning into NAC TV, and spending it right here with us as we share with you these stories behind the stories. Hope that you have another great week.